calm, focused happiness.
Hey, Mindful Tribe, welcome to the show again. Today, I have a storyteller with me, and he is just passionate about capturing and sharing narratives of people through photography and through video content. And I can tell you that I personally believe that in order to really do that successfully, you need to have a pretty strong element of mindfulness. How do you stand out in a crowded digital space? That's one of the things he does. Well, I think to be able to do that, I think you have to understand mindfulness. But we're going to find out. I'm here today with Noah Hutton. Noah, are you in mindfulness mode today?
I'm absolutely in mindfulness mode today.
Well, that's great. So, Noah, what does mindfulness mean to you?
So I was thinking about this last night as I was prepping for this podcast, and I think it's kind of two things. They both go together though. One is kind of focusing on yourself and really kind of figuring out, where you are with yourself, whether that's mentally, physically, emotionally, finding out things that you need to kind of work on with yourself. And that's kind of come to the forefront of my life with, starting my own business. The other thing is making sure that you take time for yourself and do the things that you really enjoy. So for me, that's kind of doing things that are more or less muscle memory. So I recently went back to building Lego sets, and that's kind of a weird thing to do, but it's kind of a childhood like memory I had. And whenever I got really stressed, or I would I picked up one a couple months ago, maybe even a year ago. I just kind of picked up one as like, oh, I'm at the Lego store in Chicago. I might as well grab one. And I really enjoyed it. And I was like, oh, I remember this as a kid. And so I started picking up more and more. And it was just kind of became like a therapy session for me. It's just kind of this like little thing that I do whenever I can find one that's like cheap, like $20 or whatever. Just pick it up and do it. I maybe throw on a movie, which is another thing I love to do. So that's kind of how I take time for myself and do these things that are more or less muscle memory. They don't take any thought at all. They're just kind of therapy for me. And then going back to the first one, just kind of figuring out where you are with yourself is so important to me. Entrepreneurship is not easy. It's not fun all the time. It's very stressful. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of getting told no, or getting told like, oh, that's a little silly job you have, or like little job you have that's cute. But having that strength, that mindset is really, really important. So that's something I've kind of focused on working on the past few months, especially. But I mean, I kind of realized that as when I started my business in July of last year, was when I really realized like, oh, I need to like work on myself if I'm going to be successful in this job.
So, Noah, when did you first identify yourself as a storyteller?
So I think that you have to go back to college for me, which is not that far back because I'm only 23. But
Okay.
Back in college, I joined a group called Purdue University Dance Marathon, and we raise money for Riley Hospital for Children, which is a children's hospital in Indianapolis, in Indiana. And we raise money specifically for pediatric cancer research and the child life services that they provide at the hospital. And so I got involved in that because one of my friends was like, hey, you need to do more video projects. We were both in the film program at Purdue, and he was like, you need to get involved in this because it's really cool and I really enjoy it and the people are great. So I did. He actually was like, he didn't even like say like, oh, you should join this, you should just come to a meeting. He's like, so Saturday you're shooting this thing, you are shooting this 5K, you're taking the photography. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm doing this now. And so I did. And I absolutely loved it. I stayed as a committee member, which is kind of the lowest level of commitment in the organization, and grew up into a leadership role. And so in the leadership role, I was in charge along with a chair of videography, of making videos for the group. And so we would promote fundraising initiatives we had, or we would do different events that we were doing, different meetings. We would kind of showcase that, or we would create content that we would send to the hospital, and to just help the kids have a little bit of enjoyment in such a hard time in their life. And so that is kind of where I first saw that, like, oh, I'm really telling stories here. Whether it's not necessarily narrative, it's not necessarily like telling like a person narrating a story. It's kind of just showcasing what we're all about. So for example, like March Madness is coming out for basketball right now. So in Dance Marathon, we would have something similar, like a bracket challenge with the different committees and fundraising challenge there. And so I would have to figure out a way to create a fun video to kind of showcase the different teams and showcase the different like kind of themes that they had with their team. And so that was that's telling a story. That's telling the story of the teams that are competing against each other. And then the other kind of big example of this is when you're in my position in that group, the big kind of end of the year seminal moment, I guess you would say, in that organization is the actual dance marathon. So it's an 18-hour event where you're up, you're dancing, you're having a good time, you're hearing the stories from the kids at Riley, you're fundraising, it's kind of a celebration of all of our efforts throughout the year. And as a videography chair, along with my co-chair, Tori, at the time, we were in charge of creating the kind of marathon video. So we would have everybody in our committee go out and take video of the event, and we would go out and take video of the event, and then we would go back to our little room and edit this video in real time. So we would have the video going, and it came out to a 5-6 minute video, but we were doing it from we got there at like 7 a.m. the morning of to like 10 a.m. the next day. So we were just editing this video, kind of telling the story of the whole event from the start with people coming in all excited to the middle, people are dancing but they're absolutely just exhausted because it's 2 a.m. and you haven't slept and you're just running on adrenaline and caffeine, to like 10 a.m. where everybody is just emotional, everybody's crying, it's so exciting. We do the final reveal of all the money that we raised for that year. And so that was kind of one of the big moments, I would say, in my videography career of like I created this really important video that I had always like dreamed of creating in Dance Marathon. And that it kind of tells the story of this event in an organization that I'm insanely passionate about. And I'm still involved in to this day. I go back to Purdue and meet with people that are still in Dance Marathon. I'm an alumni of the organization. And so, but that moment of creating that video is something that will stand out as kind of a storytelling milestone for me throughout my career.
Wow,
so
that's
far.
a pretty cool story. It's pretty fascinating hearing that, and just hearing you talk about it, Noah. I can tell how passionate you are about what you do. That's pretty cool to hear, and I know that a lot of people who are passionate identify with the whole idea of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get really super focused on what you're doing, do you think of that as a form of mindfulness?
Yeah, I think so. For me, whenever I'm starting a new project or starting a new, whatever I'm doing, whether it's related to videography in my job or not, I have to start it. Like I get so worried about it in the beginning, like kind of thinking about the run up to it. But then once I start it, I'm just in a groove. I'm just moving. I'm just, video editing is that way for me, where like once I put that first clip on the timeline of my video editor, I'm just going. I'm just like dropping clips in and moving music around and editing.
That's
and
cool.
It's all muscle memory. So once I get going, it's just like it's happening. Like I don't really think about it. It's not necessarily stressful. It's almost calming in a way once you get to this, like that event, that 18-hour marathon is so stressful. There's a ton of like things that have to go right, a lot of logistical problems. I have to be different places. I have to lead different people. But once I was just sitting and editing, had my headphones on, just going, like it's so calming. So I do think that it is a form of mindfulness. Like I talked about how like you have to be like, right with yourself and do the things that kind of help you de-stress. Even though it's work for me, sometimes it's stressful, most of the time it's not. And it's just kind of, I'm just going, I'm just telling the story, I'm constructing. It's like the Lego sets. Like I see video editing as kind of building a Lego set in a way. Like you're just kind of putting the pieces together, putting a sound effect here, a sound bite here, it's transitioning here. And so I really do see it as kind of a form of mindfulness when I'm, in my groove and just I'm going.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, I know that you just recently got back from Mardi Gras, and I'm just fascinated to know what that was like. It must have been pretty interesting. And I'm just interested in the fact that as a result of COVID being over, now people are just kind of getting out a little bit more and doing more celebrating, more partying. Are you seeing a kind of a resurgence of excitement and partying as a result of that?
Yeah, so I'm not the biggest partier. I'll admit. Mardi Gras I was there for work, so I didn't necessarily get to celebrate as much. I did go out a little bit and kind of see the city, just erupt in celebration and parading, and people it was wild, but it was amazing. So yeah, I do see people. I see the travels up. People are wanting to go out. I'm trying to do more trips if I can, travel for work or for pleasure, because people were locked up for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it was. They want to get out. They want to like have these experiences. They're seeing the value of experiences. And that's kind of another thing kind of related back to mindfulness. Like that trip for me, that trip down to New Orleans, I was working, but I was doing photography for a corporate conference there. But it was again one of those things where like once I got going, I was just in a groove. I was just, my camera, I was taking pictures. I was like, I just need to capture this and I'll edit later. But so like that event, I had never done corporate event photography before, and I got asked to do it. And it was fantastic. And it was weird because, it was very chaotic. It was Mardi Gras. Everybody was, alcohol was involved. People were kind of just having a good time at this event, and it was great. And it was so chaotic, and I was all over the place in the hotel, kind of capturing this event, and I was just drained by like noon of the day of the event. It was a 3-day event, but like noon of one of the days, I was like, I'm done. Like energy wise, I'm done. But I still have another 4 hours to go. But I was able to push through those 4 hours, and then I wanted to do it again the next day. And then when I left, I really wanted to go back and do it again. Like I wanted to be flying to my next location to shoot again. Like it was just that fun.
That's
So that
cool.
kind of brings it back to how I talked about like getting in a groove with my work. Like I can be nervous about the event. Like, oh, am I prepared? Do I have the right lens? Do I have the right my SD card's gonna work? My camera's gonna break. I only have one camera. Like this is gonna be big. Like New Orleans shuts down during Mardi Gras, so like all these things were running through my head. But once I was going, and I would like deliver some of my photos, and they would love them, and then that would kind of fuel me even more. So once I get going in my work, I'm just like in a groove. My mind's clear. I'm focused. I know what I need to do. I'm talking to people, like one-on-one like this. I love these conversations. And so I was trying to have those during the event too with the attendees and the presenters and vendors. So I was just like in a groove. And it was great.
Cool.
And everything was chaotic, but it was still great.
That's really awesome. Now I know you've got a podcast called The Rest of Us. I'd like to just ask you, where did you come up with the name for the podcast, and what's it been like having a podcast? How are you enjoying this?
Yeah. So the rest of us, it's really interesting. I've tried to figure out a different way to explain the name because the original kind of meaning of the name was kind of out of spite and kind of out of a negative place. So when I came out of college, I had 0 job offers. I applied to like 120 positions. I had 2 interviews, no job offers. And so I was obviously very upset about that and like kind of spiteful towards the organization or the people that like didn't hire me. And that was kind of more of a negative mindset that I've tried to leave behind because it was not productive in any way. But in the moment, I was it was in that kind of mindset of spite where I kind of came up with the name, like the rest of us. Like there's the 9 to 5ers and there's the rest of us that are making our own way because we have to, because nobody will hire us, kind of thing. But in a more positive spin on that, I think it's just kind of, there's the people that almost have to be entrepreneurs and have to be creatives and have to be creators because they just have that need to create, that need to tell a story, that need to run their own business, have something that they've created. Because like even if an entrepreneur is like running a retail store or they're running like a clothing brand or a tech company, they're still creating something. They're creating a business. They're creating a brand. And so I think for me, that's kind of again why I started the podcast, was I had this need to create. I needed to tell stories. I needed to talk to people. And also with entrepreneurship, it's really lonely. It's a really lonely profession, especially starting out. Once you hire and you have a business partner, that will help with that. But in the beginning, when you're just a solopreneur, it is extremely lonely. And so I was like, I need to talk to people. And the podcast idea kind of came out of a conversation I had with one of my friends who's an interior designer. She's absolutely fantastic. I love talking to her about business, and she just started her own company, which is really exciting. But we just meet and we could go for 10 hours. Like we could just talk about just business and entrepreneurship. And I was like, I need to have more of those conversations. And I've had a lot of them with people, on my podcast or off my podcast. but just having those conversations, it helps me kind of just learn from other business owners and stuff like that. So it was out of a little bit out of spite in the beginning, but now it's out of more of a need to create. And it's been really exciting. I just released my 10th episode today,
Cool.
and I have another 5 after that are recorded and more, to come. So it's been a really exciting process. But that's kind of the origin story of the podcast.
So do you usually interview people in your own city or your own area?
No, so I've actually interviewed all over the country. I've talked to people. I actually have an interview coming up with a guy from Australia, which is really cool. I've talked to people in England. I've talked to people all over the country. I started out very local, people I met at Purdue, or my first episode was somebody I went to high school with, but I have friends all over the country. I met people all over the country with this job. There's a founder that I met at the conference I was shooting at. She's going to be a guest, hopefully. And she's from somewhere in Europe. I don't know where. I know the company's based in London, but she's from a different country. But it's going to be a really interesting conversation, I think. And so I've talked to people all over the country, and that's kind of the beauty of the podcast, is being remote for now, at least. I want to build a studio eventually, but right now I'm remote recording, and it just allows me to talk to anybody anytime. And it's been a really great experience talking to everybody and learning from people.
Right. And what city are you in?
I'm in Warsaw, Indiana. So it's not the most well-known town, but if you're looking at Indiana and you see Indianapolis, just go about 2 hours north and you're going to hit Warsaw. So it's like middle north of the state.
I see. Okay. No, I always ask a question about bullying, and I know you're a storyteller, so I'm figuring you'll probably have a story about it. But I used to work in bullying prevention for a long time, and I find that mindfulness and bullying are very closely related, because if you can truly be mindful, probably you can get through some of these situations, and it may not affect you in the same way. But do you have a story where bullying maybe would have made a difference?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this last night too. And I was really weird because in high school I always had this mindset of kind of like that would never happen to me. Like bullying is very evident, and I see it in high school, I see it in middle school or whatever, but that's not me. I would never have that experience. But as I matured and got through college and thinking back on these moments, I realized that the bullying I experienced, and I was thankful to not have like a ton of serious events like the people would think about, but it was more just out of like teasing and just kind of out of like being the butt of a joke, or like having these like kind of passive aggressive like friendships and things like that always happened without my friend group. And we were always just like picking on each other, and sometimes it was fun, and it's just kids being kids and all this kind of stuff, which is totally great, and kids should be like grow up that way. But there were points where I looked back on it and I was like, oh, I felt kind of bad after they said that, or I felt bad after that situation. And so I didn't really think of it that way until I got into college and matured and had all these like just a better mindset on my past and be able to reflect in a more mature way, kind of looking at it and be like, oh, that actually did happen to me. I was thankful that it wasn't like I didn't get pushed in a locker or anything like that, or beat up or anything like that. But like the mental kind of bullying in a way, people knew like what my buttons were that they could push and stuff like that. And so that's really where that came out, especially in high school for me.
Yeah. And since you've started your own business and been doing your own thing, have you found any signs of that kind of behavior in the work world?
Not really. I don't really see that kind of behavior. I mean, I think a lot of people, especially if they are in a similar mindset that I am, especially in the creative field, a lot of us really just want to support each other, which has been great. Videographers want to help videographers. We want to hire each other on projects and send our work to each other and be like, hey, like just destroy this project, just give me all your critiques that you can, because I want to get better. And so we all want to work together. I do see kind of a little bit of elitism sometimes in the workplace, whether it is but it can be generational, I think. So I work in real estate media a lot, and there are a lot of younger realtors that are coming into the profession that are my age, and I love working with them because we're all just kind of hustling and grinding and trying to figure out if we can be successful in our careers. But a lot of the older agents, and not a lot, I don't want to say a lot because I work with a lot of agents that are fantastic, but some of the older agents, they can have a little bit of elitism to them, like they're team leaders, or if they are sold a ton of listings and properties, there is a little bit of like, I don't know, elitism is probably the best word for that. Just kind of holier than thou, like, I'm the agent, I'm selling the $1 million property, you're just the photographer, like, I'm just paying you a couple $100 to do this, and I'm making $100,000 on this project or whatever it is. So I think that comes into it, but I think generally people are pretty mature, and just the way that they interact with everybody and pretty kind, but there's a little bit of that in the profession for sure.
Sure. Noah, the title of the episode that we're let me try this again. Noah, the title of the episode that we're doing here is called Growing a Creative Business. Why do you believe being creative is so important?
So I mean, it kind of comes with my work. I'm providing creative solutions to companies, but also it's just a way to kind of have a different perspective on your business and different ways of going about doing things. So I think, especially with COVID, people kind of realized that the way that we've been doing things isn't going to work anymore. And I think in the beginning we were always like, oh, this is going to be a few months, and then we're going to go back to 2019. We're going to go back to what we were doing, and that's just like, that's a thing of the past. We're not going to go back to anything. Like, we're doing all this new, new things, whether it's new ways to market your business, new ways to sell your business, new ways to do anything. And so I think that being creative and kind of thinking outside the box is really, really important, because in order to stand out in such a saturated world, it's easier than ever to start a business now. And so anybody can pick up a camera and start their photography business. Anybody can, and I love that. Like, it allowed me to start my photography business,
Sure.
but it forces me now to be more creative in how I market myself, how I grow my business, how I like being on a podcast. Like, that wasn't necessarily a thing 5 years ago of how you grow your business, but in part of the way that I want to grow my podcast or grow my business is guesting on podcasts, or talking to other business owners, joining networking groups, all these different things. The days of Facebook ads and Google ads to grow your 6-7 figure business, they might be still there for some areas, but generally speaking, that's not necessarily the way you're going to grow your business now. You have to be creative. You have to be willing to kind of make fun of yourself and have fun, and make videos that you may look back and be like, what did I do? But in the moment, it was really fun, and it helped to grow your business, help get attention on your business. So I think it's really important now to be creative and just think outside the box in how
Sure.
you are marketing yourself and growing your business, and building a business.
Sure. I know your website is noah-hutton.com, Noah-Hutton. What's the name of your business, Noah?
My business is NTH Productions. So it's my initials, Noah Thomas Hutton Productions. I am working on a new website that'll be a little more apt to the business name. But yeah, it's NTH Productions. It's kind of weird. I started like a photography page on Instagram, and it was NTH Photography. And that was just kind of a place to put my photos. And then that kind of evolved into where my production company is now. So it's NTH Productions.
I see. So as we move forward to the interview, Noah, I want to ask you 5 quick answer questions. So just 30-second answers are perfect. The first one is this: who is one person that's been a powerful mindfulness influence for you in your life?
I would have to say, probably my friend Olivia, who I talked about, was the interior designer that I met with.
Right.
She brings a different perspective to, owning a business, but also just life. And so whenever I talk to her, I just get that different perspective on, like, just how she sees my business and sees her business.
That's interesting. Tell us how mindfulness has helped you deal with your emotions.
I think I kind of alluded it in the beginning of the podcast, but just focusing on what you need and
Mhm.
what will help you be the best version of yourself, whether that is, I need to go to the gym more and get physically fit, or I need to take a walk, or I need to
Mhm.
do something that I enjoy, watching a movie, building a Lego set, whatever, travel. It's focusing on what you need, and that'll just help you like be more successful in life, because you are right with yourself.
Sure. I want to talk about breathing. We haven't touched on this yet. Do you have any special breathing techniques that you use, or any comments on breathing as it's related to mindfulness?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think more what I do is I'm able a lot more now to kind of recognize when I'm in a state of like really stressed or a lot of anxiety. And I've been able to recognize that a lot more. Then that is when I can kind of, do what I need to do to get out of that. But I don't necessarily use like breathing techniques, but I kind of realize what anxiety looks like for me and what stress looks like for me. And then that's kind of where I do the things that I do to de-stress.
Sure. And are there any books that you would recommend that are related to mindfulness?
So, Atomic Habits by James Clear is one I just started reading. I'm not super far into it, so I can't speak for the whole book, but every entrepreneur, business owner, coach, everybody that I've talked to recommends it. And I think habits are so important when you're starting a business, or especially for me, like coming out of college, like getting, your life in order, getting those habits in order is super important because it helps you to have some control in your life, especially, as a business owner things can seem out of control a lot of the time. Even when like you can do anything you want as a solo entrepreneur, but there's a lot of things that are out of your control. And so getting these habits, a daily routine, the way you like to do things, the way I edit video, the way I, deliver things to my clients, however, my workflow, getting those habits in order really helps with having a clear head and knowing exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And are there any apps that you use in your business or your everyday life that really help you stay focused?
So one that I just added, it's very specific to the real estate media industry, but it's called Aereo. And it's how I deliver how people order my services and how I deliver them to my agents. And that has been a lifesaver for me because it eliminates the back and forth of, okay, like I want you to shoot this house. Okay, what time? Okay, where's the house? Do you want drone photos? Do you want video? Like just the back and forth of that. It allows them to just order what they want, and then I deliver it to them, and then they pay throughout the app. And it also allows me to take payment before they get their photos because I've had
Oh,
issues with people not paying in the
hmm
past and me
hmm
delivering the work. So that was, when those things happen, when people didn't pay, those were really stressful.
right.
And I was like, they owe me X number of dollars. My business has $50 in the bank account. Like I need this money to
Yeah.
continue,
Yeah.
so this app, it's very specific to what I do, but it helped a lot with guaranteeing the money to come in because as a business, cash flow, especially in the beginning, is so crucial to keeping your business afloat.
So Noah, how do you spell Aereo?
It's ARYEO.
Okay, I'll check that out. That's interesting that is something that works so effectively for you. That's
Yeah.
really great.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's really awesome to talk to you, a young entrepreneur who's making your way and making things happen and just growing. And how exciting is that? Do you have any final words of advice for us as we move forward as far as mindfulness is concerned?
Yeah, I think one thing I've realized as I've kind of grown as an entrepreneur and in the short time I've owned a business is that one thing for business owners is just people, you need to get out and talk to people, whether that is in networking for your business, going to events, going to parties, going to whatever, or just going to a bar or going to a restaurant and talking to people, or meeting up with friends. You need to talk to people. I think, like video chatting like we are is great. And I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs over video and never met them in real life. But those conversations I've had, whether one-on-one or in a networking group locally for me, that's really where I've seen the most growth personally and professionally. And so I think if anybody has, issues with anxiety, stress, whatever, there's a lot of different fixes for that and everybody has a different way. But for me, getting out and being social as an introverted person, that's such a weird thing to say. Like I'm the most introverted you could possibly be, but getting out and being social has really like helped me grow as a person, grow as a business owner. And just, it's really, I enjoy it when I am like in these one-on-one situations. So it's a weird thing that I've realized, but it's kind of necessary for me now. I can't go without talking to people. So
Yeah. Noah, thank you so much for being a guest on Mindfulness Mode. I really appreciate it.
yes, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Thanks. All the best. Bye now.
Bye.
Hey, Mindful Tribe, are you experiencing anxiety? Are you experiencing stress and tension and feeling as though, it's just difficult to move on? That describes the clients I work with. Clients who have had an awful lot of problem with anxiety and stress, and maybe some kind of habits that are holding them back. And through hypnosis, we get to the bottom of it. We get right in there and we talk about it. But with hypnosis, we get right into what is causing some of this in your subconscious mind, because your subconscious mind represents about 90 to 95% of your thoughts. And you don't even realize what those thoughts are much of the time. And through hypnosis, we can get in there and we can work at this. Doesn't mean we're going to change what's going on in your subconscious mind. It means we're going to become more aware of it and then deal with it and think of it differently in the conscious mind. And I am so happy to have helped so many people with their anxiety through hypnosis and coaching. And you could be the next person. If you're listening to this episode and you would like to let go of some of this anxiety, send me an email, bruce@mindfulnessmode.com. Put coaching session in the subject line, coaching session, send it to bruce@mindfulnessmode.com. And I would love to have you on a Zoom call for a free session where we can talk about what's going on and what's happening and how can I help you. Because that's one thing I truly know about myself, is that I really love helping other people, and I would love to help you. So thanks for listening. Take what we've learned today to reach new heights of calm, focus, and happiness. Stay in the mode.